Hi, Dr. Gerhauser here. The Natural Foods Diet is really into making sure you have sources for the fat-soluble vitamins in your diet. They are what are so many times missing in the processed foods diet. Now, these vitamins include A, D, E, and K. So let's talk about vitamin K today. Vitamin K is the fat-soluble vitamin that most clinicians and patients know is related to blood clotting. Now they are talking about vitamin K1. K comes from the German word coagulation. Most people also know that the major source of this vitamin is green leafy vegetables such as spinach and Swiss chard. Now since the 1980s, studies have shown a correlation between vitamin K intake and the risk of fractures. More recently, studies have begun to correlate vitamin K to other diseases and conditions. Now, as far as bone density is concerned, it is known that calcium is incorporated into the protein matrix of the bone by activated osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is activated through a carboxylation process that is catalyzed by vitamin K. Studies have shown that people with the highest percentage of inactivated osteocalcin have 5 times higher hip fracture rate than those with activated osteocalcin. It's also been shown that vitamin K2, which is different than vitamin K1, is much more efficient than vitamin K1 for activating these osteocalcin levels. Vitamin K2 then is sort of the new guy on the block. Exciting initial research is showing that it may have a large influence on many body functions. Now, Japanese studies have already shown that supplementation with high levels of vitamin K2 can reverse osteoporosis with no side effects. Does this sound like a safer, saner treatment as opposed to drugs like Fosamax that actually kill the osteoclast cells in the bone? Other side effects of these drugs include damage to the esophagus, death of the jawbone, and increased bone fragility, where people get spontaneous femur fractures. That's fractures without doing anything. Now, vitamin K2 is produced by fermentation. That is why fermented dairy products are a great source for K2. Another source for vitamin K2 includes natto, which is a fermented soy food eaten in Japan. I've never tried it, but I've heard it has a developed taste and smell. Now, animal fat and other organ meats are other sources of vitamin K2. There's evidence linking persons and animals deficient in K2 to abnormal calcification of soft tissues, such as the arteries. Vitamin K2 activates matrix GLA protein, which is a major inhibitor of arterial calcification. A large clinical trial done in Europe showed that low vitamin K was strongly associated with the risk of developing coronary artery disease, and higher levels showed reduced mortality. Now, studies in animals have also shown that supplementing with K2 can completely prevent the calcification of our arteries in certain animal models. Now, the same studies, they tried K1, and K1 had very little effect, so there's a big difference. So it may be that vitamin K2 is the reason for the French paradox. You know the French paradox? The French people have low rates of coronary artery disease despite eating all that fat and cheese. So now you can stop guzzling all that red wine. There's no reason to. It's the cheese. Just kidding. But calcium deposition in the walls of the artery might also make the artery stiffer, so K2 deficiency may relate to high blood pressure. Research has also shown that vitamin K2 catalyzes an enzyme that produces sulfatides in the brain. Decreased sulfatides have been associated with brain aging and, guess what, Alzheimer's disease. Another possible area where vitamin K2 deficiency might be important is as a potential cause of kidney stones, again related to calcium metabolism. It could be that increasing K2 in the diet with supplements or in the food could prevent kidney stones. Recent studies have also shown that higher K2 levels greatly reduce the risk of prostate cancer. Other studies have showed it reduces varicose veins, skin aging, and helping with growth. There is other evidence that K2 may have important ramifications for the immune function. It's also noted that there are K2 receptors in mitochondria and the nucleus of many tissues. So I get the feeling we're only discovering the tip of the iceberg as far as vitamin K2 effects. Now, the foods that give you K2 may impact the risk for osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, brain diseases like Alzheimer's, immune dysfunction, kidney stones, and cancer. Now, what are the foods that are high in vitamin K2? Well, it's mostly animal source foods, including hard cheeses, butter from grass-fed cattle, and not the factory farm butter that you get from Safeway. Organ meats, egg yolks from pasture-raised chicken, curd cheeses. Notice that these foods are the ones modern nutritionists tell us to avoid. Now, there's K2 supplements in the form of MK4 and MK7, and there's evidence that these may treat vitamin K2 deficiency. Now, some people say, well, your gut flora makes all the K2 you need. Well, the K2 made in our gut flora is bound to the bacterial cell wall, and it's not bioavailable, so it's not a good source for K2. Now, it's not that I'm jumping on a bandwagon here. It's just that the science is finally catching up to the intelligent design of our Creator. All we have to do is eat the traditional foods for humans and avoid modern food processing in order to have abundant health. I was eating these foods that have all this K2 long before K2 was discovered. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. If you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button above.